knows what Circle City Con is? Anybody? All right, yeah. As long as Jack knows, we're safe. It's a conference we're setting up in Indianapolis. This is our second year. Attendance looks to be huge this time around. These stickers have a code for $25 off a badge if you guys want to go. It's in Indianapolis. So it is June 12th through 14th. Right in the middle of con season. I told them not to do it, but they did it anyway. And there it is. We're good? Okay. So who knows who I am? Who has seen Johnny Xmas come across their screen? No, awesome. Who? No, you get outside. You're going to confuse everyone. So putting this talk together has been a very spiritual, philosophical journey into what it is to be a human being. And I realized about 3 months in that my talk was going to be about 6 to 8 hours long. And they're only giving me 50 minutes, so I had to figure out what to do about that. And so one thing I've done is I'm splitting it up into 2 parts. This is going to be, or maybe more than 2 parts. This is going to be part 1. They're all going to operate independently, so don't worry about it too much. The target audience for this one is going to be people who just don't network at all, or people who are trying to go to meetups, go to places where they want to meet people, possibly in their own industry, and it's just not working out. They can't figure out what they're doing wrong. What I did for that is I did a few months of research. I went to a lot of meetups. I founded a meetup. I've talked to a lot of people who go to a lot of these meetups including conferences or anything of that sort, even just local, OWASP, whatever. And I put together kind of lists of what I see the most people doing wrong most of the time. So this is going to be a combination of stop doing this, and also what you should be doing instead, and how to get better at what you're doing. So we call this networking, which has so many meanings now, especially in IT. Networking, when you think of networking, what is it? It's meeting people for the purpose of having them be useful to you in the future, whether it's career-wise or something else. And so we always put networking in this like professional context of you know, I got to be wearing a suit while I'm networking and I'm meeting other professionals and trading business cards. And you don't get much out of that. That's not really what it is. Really, all networking is just it's making friends. It's getting people to like you so that they'll help you out in the future. They'll remember you. They'll be able to give you a good reference. Especially, say, you know, I don't know if you guys have local security meetups. We have a few up in Chicago, and a lot of people end up getting jobs up there because after you've gone a few times and you made a bunch of friends there and you're just hanging out and drinking your beers or whatever, one day you'll show up and go, yeah, my job's up in May, so I got to start looking. You're going to get, what's that? There you go. So, well, I know a lot of people aren't from Nashville, but you go NashSec. Can I plug BurbSec then? You can. Are there any people from around Chicagoland in here? No, okay then. There? All right. Okay, so if you're out on a Thursday, we have an organization called BurbSec. It meets every Thursday at different locations at burbsec.com. Check it out. And so that's just a meetup of information security people, regardless of your position, and also a lot of IT people who are just interested in the field. And a lot of those IT people are interested in the field and they're trying to get a job doing it. They'll come to the meetups and, hey, maybe I can meet somebody who can get me an in. And all it is just meeting a bunch of people, getting them to like you, so maybe when that job opens up, they're going to go, hey, you know, I got this really good guy who's been looking to break in. We got a junior engineer position. I like him. Let's get him in here. It's easier than taking 1,000 resumes off a pile and guessing at some strangers. Here's this guy at least I know is going to click with me. And so that's all we're really talking about is just making people like you. It sounds very superficial. Making people like you in order to use them in the future is a bad sentence, a bad way of putting it. But it's okay as long as you're doing the same for them. That's just called friendship. That's just a relationship. Did my mic just go up? No. Okay. So quick disclaimer on this, because we're dealing with a lot of issues here that everyone's going to have an exception for anything I say that you should do. There are always exceptions to every rule. You can't use your bizarre one-off thing that happened to a friend of a cousin of yours as an excuse for not trying it yourself. I'm going to use words like all, every, always. We all speak English. We know that we exaggerate, that that's all hyperbole. Everything's got that 2% flub ratio. Nothing is always, ever, every, all. So I don't want people calling me out on that. I'm going to recommend some things that your current position in life may interfere with your ability to do. You may not be able to do some things because you now have a family, you have kids, and your spouse works and somebody's got to stay home to watch the kids, etc. I may say you should buy this or that, and you may be severely in debt for whatever reason and just don't have that kind of cash flow, or are a college student and just don't have that kind of cash flow. So I understand that. Some of this isn't going to apply to you. The big thing I'm going to talk about is inconvenient truths. Terrible things that are true about society. I'm going to, sexism is real. Racism is real. It's out there, and it happens, and it's a thing you have to work around. It would be great if we could stop all of that, but we haven't, and maybe we're getting closer, but in the meantime, these are stumbling blocks that you are going to have to acknowledge are real and acknowledge that you have to work around. So, some street cred on me, like what gives me the right to sit up here and tell you guys how to network, and that networking is good. I spent 5 years in high school as I was misdiagnosed with a learning disability. It turned out I just learned differently from what the average person learns, and going to a public school, you're only going to get the average type of education that fits for the most people. I ended up scoring a 29 on my ACT. I went to college for a year on a music scholarship. Otherwise, there was no way. I was very much against taking out loans and things like that. I ended up getting expelled from college that same year. And I'm not, part of the settlement is I'm not allowed to discuss details of what went on. The company that sued me is now out of business, and so I feel a little safer mentioning it now, but don't ask me for details because I'm not going to give them to you. I had pointed out a vulnerability in a system that the school used that was built for them by a third party, which is this company. This is before ethical hacking was a thing. This is before we had this process of properly reporting bugs. And because I didn't follow anything like that, then I was a dumb 19-year-old. I was sued by that company for slander, for getting in the way of their business, because now they're saying other people aren't going to use us because I pointed out this huge flaw in what they do with people's personal information. They're a massive company. I'm a broke college kid. In America, whoever has the most money in a court case is who wins. And that's an inconvenient truth. But there it is, and that's what happened. I was homeless for a short period of time. That was more my stubbornness than actually being forced to be homeless. That was me, trying to save my money and really get somewhere. But man, nothing teaches you about life like being homeless. And I'm not recommending anyone here be homeless. But you'll learn some things being homeless. A lot of people were giving me grief for like, oh yeah, of course you can get up and talk about networking and tell people to do. You're just naturally good at it. You're just a naturally charismatic person. And you just like going places and you do everything and you lead this adventurous life. And that used to not be true until very recently. I suffered from agoraphobia for my late teens through my early 20s, which was, I could stay outside of my house for maybe an hour max, and then I would freak out, and I would just have to go back home. Wherever I was, if we were having a good time, I'd go, all right, I got to go, guys. I'll talk to you later. And I would go home and do nothing. There wasn't something at home I had to do. It was just, it was agoraphobia, and there's no reason or rhyme behind it. Possibly because of that, or maybe that's what caused it. I don't know. Suffered from severe depression and suicidal thoughts for a very, very, very long time. I'm sure the majority of this room has suffered or continues to suffer from some sort of depression. It's very common when you're very intelligent. It's normal. My late 20s, early 30s, I finally got some serious help for it. I got over that stigma of it's embarrassing to have a therapist and psychologists are only for crazy people. It's absolutely not true. With the kind of society we live in and the stress we're under these days, I really feel like everyone should have a therapist. And all the rich people do. Every movie star out there, they've all got therapists. And they see them weekly, if not multiple times a week. I don't know why that hasn't trickled down. It's one of the greatest things I've ever done for myself. I have adult acne, a lot of which this 5 o'clock shadow that looks all handsome is actually just covering up. I'm just hiding out here. I am part Sicilian, which means I got all the great aspects of being part Sicilian, which is talking really loud and being greasy. I can get about 12 hours out of my hair before it looks greasy, and that's just how it is. I have severe scoliosis, which when I'm not moving around, you can kind of tell I have one shoulder that's lower than the other. If I stand still, I start to look really weird the longer you look at me. I'm tall and lanky, so it is very, very hard for me to find clothes that fit. Oh yeah, well, and that's my point. Is a lot of this probably applies to a lot of you. Some of us are short and can't find clothes. Some of us are stocky, but tall, and the point of this is I figured it out, and we're going to talk about how I figured it out later. But these are all the things that I've overcome that have really helped me be more sociable, get into more places, and be able to come up here and kind of give you guys my bag of tricks I have. I got my first real IT job through a friend I made while I was working retail. And this is, early 20s, late teens. And so who in here has their job because they knew somebody? Not just a friend, but just somebody, an acquaintance. Okay, the national average is about 73%. So that's the vast majority of people only have their job because they knew somebody, through an acquaintance, through networking. And that's not because they went to information security meetups and met an information security manager who was hiring. It's just through that weird 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon connectedness you get through meeting people on a regular basis. Serendipity picks up at some point. Statistically, you're going to meet someone who's going to be able to help you somewhere. And that's what happened here. After working various IT jobs for a while, I landed my first InfoSec job. I was just a base engineer with a Global 1000 company. Via a friend I met while playing board games. Like I would go to a monthly board game night. And I'm talking, playing trains, or we'd do infinity campaigns sometimes. And it was a bunch of guys. We'd meet at a friend's house and just play board games. And I didn't know what most of these guys did as a profession because it didn't come up. And that was my fault for not asking sooner. But one day, one of the guys emails my roommate and says, "Hey, do you know anybody who's looking to get into InfoSec? We got a base position open. We've been looking for a year and a half, and we just can't find anybody with the right base skill set." And my roommate goes, "That's what Johnny's looking to do. He does that as a hobby anyway." And he's like, "Really?" And so this guy who emailed my roommate was one of the guys at my board games night who didn't even know that I was looking. And here I've known him for 8 months, and he's been trying to find someone like me for 8 months. So it's not just meetups. It's not just conferences. It's anywhere you go, there's a really good potential that someone you meet is going to be able to help you out in the future. So just keep that in mind. I was then promoted to a senior position within 18 months of starting there. This is starting as a base InfoSec engineer with no InfoSec knowledge whatsoever, no experience, but tons of knowledge. And I was promoted to senior within 18 months. And that's not me bragging about how good I am. I definitely call a lot of that me clicking with everyone on the team, everyone in the company, being involved, changing mentalities there, just making friends, making acquaintances, as it were. And right now, I've got a promising career as a pen tester and other stuff as a senior consultant via a guy who's in the back of the room right now, who I have only seen 5, maybe 6, if we count today, would you say? 7, 8, all right, 7, 8 times. He lives in Louisville. I live in Chicago. Now we work together because I said, "Hey, my job's up in May." And he and another guy who worked there expressed an interest and said, "We should really get Johnny in here. I know him. I know what he's doing. I've talked to him a lot. I think he'd be a really good fit." And that's what happened. So is that because I've got this charmed life? Serendipity just smiles on me. I have some magic spell that was cast on me that makes everything always going to work out? No, absolutely not. That's not what it is at all. That's Rob Thomas, by the way. He knows Rob Thomas, singer, Matchbox 20. She knows. That's a joke for us old folks. And what it was I just learned to play the game. And the game, in this context, it sounds like it has a negative connotation. It sounds like it's fake, and it's about being fake, and it's about lying and social engineering. And it's not. The game I'm referring to here is just the game of existing in society. The game of, I have to put pants on when I go outside because nobody likes wearing pants. Who likes wearing pants? But you get along way better in society when you have some pants on and you're outside. And it's this game, this thing that none of us like to do, but it's polite society is another way of putting it. Learning how to interact with polite society and kind of get your name in there. 3 books I read really helped me out with this, and I'm going to skim through them really quick and just call them required reading, because I'm not going to cover a lot of the topics that are in them because it'd just be reinventing the wheel. But as far as becoming better at being sociable and being social and making more acquaintances and getting people to remember who you are the next time they're looking for someone like you, a lot of that came from these 3 books. The first one is The Game by Neil Strauss. Who knows what this book is? This is incredibly famous. 1 guy? 2? All right. I knew Trey did. All right. This is one of my favorite books of all time. It is on the surface. It's an autobiographical piece on a guy who meets up with another guy who has a training course on picking up women. And all of the horrible things that come of that. But underneath, it's a treatise on how simple society and how simple the human psyche really is and how shallow most of us are. And it's just fantastic. You learn so many ways in this book to circumvent a lot of the BS in polite society and get right to the point. It's fantastic. Do not use this book as an instruction manual. I see guys doing that all the time. And it will never work out. That's not what its purpose was. In fact, what's the opening scene in this book? Somebody who's read it. Blair, what's the opening? The opening scene is where the author, Neil Strauss, is taking his best friend, who was the guy he met, to a psychiatric hospital because he's literally lost his mind. He's gone completely insane and is suicidal because he no longer has to interact with society because he knows exactly what he has to say and when he has to say it at all times to get what he wants. And he's just lost all will to live because of that, because life is no longer fun. So don't use this as an instruction manual. They try to tell you that up front. I think a lot of people don't get that. But it's a great piece on the simplicity of the human psyche. It's fantastic. Another one, who knows this book? Who's at least heard that? Yeah, absolutely. So who knows why this book was written? This book was written by Dale Carnegie back in the late 30s, and it's got this really cool language from the late 30s. I wish we still talked like this. It's amazing. But this was meant to be a textbook for salespeople. This was him saying all of these colleges and universities have all these courses on how to be a chemist, how to be a pharmacist, etc. But sales, especially back then when door-to-door sales was a huge thing, there's no courses on that. We can teach them English and grammar, but how do you teach them polite society? How do you teach them the game? And so he wrote this book on that, and it's practically textbook form. It's excellent. It talks about things like how to get out of an argument, how to point out that somebody is wrong without making them feel inferior for it. Things like that. Just every awkward situation where you can screw up a relationship if you don't respond properly is in this book. And it's absolutely fantastic for that. It cuts right to the chase. It gives you all these situations. It's definitely something you need to read. Lastly, absolutely critical reading for any social engineer. Yeah, ask Kyle. This is, who knows what NLP is? Neuro-linguistic programming. Good, this is a good crowd. Because I'm presenting new information here. Neurolinguistic programming is one of the cores of social engineering. It's why it works. You may be doing it and not knowing that you're doing it. A lot of what it talks about is, the idea of it is how to talk directly to somebody's subconscious while they're not hypnotized, while they're awake and looking at you. How to write code into their subconscious, which affects directly how they act, without them knowing you're doing it. This is more than just the basic social engineering of guiding a conversation in a certain direction. This is directly programming people's brains, which is kind of a cool and scary thought. One of the things I really liked about this book is it talks at length about conveying information and getting people to commit information to memory via storytelling. Trey Ford, who went to Trey's keynote this morning? That's exactly what he was doing to you. He may not realize it's what he was doing to you, but he knows that if I tell a story and put these key facts in it, people are going to take that to heart more than if you just listed off a bunch of words that are on a slide. You get them interested. And that comes from the fact that we, as animals, have evolved to use storytelling as a way of conveying important information to the next generation. As long before we had written history, the old tribal leaders would tell all the kids all these stories from back in the olden days. And our brains have evolved to listen to stories, especially stories about personal experience, and really take that to heart back in the subconscious, back in the caveman part of our brains that stops growing after all the modern man stuff in your brain starts forming around it. It's why all the major religious texts are mostly stories. It's why Jesus spoke in parables. Instead of just telling people to be nice to each other once in a while, he would tell stories about people who came out ahead because they were nice. And that's exactly what this is. Again, highly recommend it. Absolutely critical. So, here come our inconvenient truths. This one I already started to get into. The game of polite society is real, whether you like it or not. Most of us don't like it. Most of us don't like the fact that we have to go to work and get yelled at and just take it and go, okay, I'm sorry. That our work has dress codes, or we don't like the fact that we're going to be judged based on our appearance and we have to dress properly based on where we're going. And if I just didn't feel like getting out of sweatpants that day, that doesn't mean I'm any worse of a pen tester, but that's how people are going to think it. And we all know the game. We play it every day, or we at least get irritated by it every day. You have to play it if you're trying to get ahead. If you want to get anywhere serious, you have to play it. Because you don't have to. You can stay at home. You can just be that guy that gets kicked around. But just trying to play it, just getting your foot in that door, just doing a bare minimum to try and meet them halfway is going to get you somewhere. If you look at all the pro sports players, the guys who never even leave the bench, the guys who are on the bench every day, not even playing in the main games. You know what those guys make? Those guys are making way more than us, easily. And they don't even play. They just show up to practice, and they just put on the uniform, and they give it their best, and they don't get, they're not even third string, but they're still making way more than we are. We give the whole concept of like participation trophies a lot of crap because, it's like, oh, well, your team, you were the worst team in the Little League, but here's a trophy because you showed up so you don't feel bad. That participation trophy still means that you're better than the people who didn't even sign up for Little League. The people who stayed at home and watched TV, at least that trophy goes, look, I was on a team, I was on an adult softball team for, a summer or 6 summers, and here's all my participation trophies for it. And you got something from being on that team. It shows you, you go outside, you socialize. And that's really what it is. Just as long as you're participating, even if you're not the greatest social engineer on the planet, even if you're not unbelievably charismatic, even if you're a severe introvert, but you're still going out, you're still trying to talk to people, or you're at least talking to people when they come up to you, you know that this is something you have to do. You're going out of your comfort zone to at least make this try to happen. That's what's important, because you're going to get somewhere even with that. even with that little bit of effort. Because, yeah, everybody knows this quote, showing up is 80% of life. Not a lot of people know it's Woody Allen. What he means by that is, one, it's really hard to show up. And so you put most of the effort you put into life is just showing up, and I'll talk about showing up later. But if you're just sitting in bed, or you're sitting on the couch, random strangers aren't going to be walking past your bed. At least not the useful ones there. I mean, there's always that 2% where someone's got a stranger that walked past their bed once. And he gave me a job on the spot. But yeah, it's... So this is what we're showing you today. This is going to be like an introduction to human networking, how to get that participation trophy, how to just show up. And it sounds like kind of a dumb thing, like, well, it's easy to show up, you just go over there. It's not. So we're going to talk about that. This is how you show up. Coffee's for closers. And anybody who closes a deal here, I'll buy you a coffee. So showing up is actually really hard. This great comedian named John Mulaney, who just had a terrible show on Fox that bombed after, I think, 1 or 2 episodes, had some of the greatest ways of putting in these feelings we have the words I ever thought. He says, it's so much easier not to do things than it is to do them, that you would do anything at all is like totally remarkable. The fact that we just do anything is amazing because it's so much easier to just sit there and wait to die. In terms of instant relief, canceling plans is like heroin. Who knows that? When you just call them, you're like, I'm not going to make it. Even though you don't have anything else to do, you just don't feel like it. And they go, okay, I'll see you later, John. And then you just sit down and you're like, oh my God, it's going to be the best day ever. And that last one is like, if you ever ask an adult, like, yes, kids are always upset where they're like, man, we didn't do anything today. Well, I didn't get to do anything. Today was dumb. You ask an adult what they did over the weekend, and if they didn't do anything, they're like, we didn't do anything. It was amazing. We just, it was fantastic. We love not doing anything, especially in such a high-stress society like we have now. Being able to get rid of that little bit of stress for that one day is just this instant relief. And because of that, it's really hard for us to show up. It takes a lot of mental fortitude to actually get yourself to do it, especially if you're dealing with things like depression, where we have no motivation to really do anything in the first place. And so the one sentence that I give to people who are always asking me, how do you do it? How do you meet all these people? How are you having such an adventurous life? I like to travel, and people notice that, and so that's why they think I'm like Indiana Jones. And how have you done all these things with your life when I'm 20 years older than you, and all I've done is buy a house and get married? Say yes to everything. That's the one thing I tell them. Always say yes. If they ask you to do something and you look in your calendar and it's blank, and it's within your reasonable financial means or whatever, take everything into consideration. But if your calendar's blank, say yes. Just say yes, regardless of what it is. Because I'd say maybe 1 in 3 times, you're at the very least going to end up with a new life situation. You're probably going to meet somebody new. One example is skydiving. Somebody asked me to go skydiving, and it sounds crazy. A lot of people wouldn't go skydiving, not going to jump out of a plane. But I didn't have nothing to do that day. I know it's generally safe. Take safety into consideration. If you absolutely are not the kind of person who would go skydiving, don't. But if it's not something that's putting your life in danger, even though that was, or something that's just financially impossible for you, say yes. Go to this thing. Go to that thing. Hey, I'm going to this party at a guy's house. Do you want to go, even though you may not know anybody? There's a lot of cool people who work at this company. Whatever. Say yeah. Just go along with it. If your calendar's open, and I understand, like I said, some of you have family obligations, things like that. If your calendar is open, do it. Don't say no just because you don't feel like it. Because you not feeling like it is the biggest stumbling block I always see. It's hard for us to feel like doing things. It's hard for us to show up. And so when you promise yourself, when you make this commitment of, I'm going to say yes. If my calendar's open, I'm going to say yes. Life's a freaking adventure. everything going on out there is awesome. There is some awesome stuff you are missing out on because you didn't say yes. And it's often not in the places you think it would be. You know, it's not in the, hey, who wants to go down to the shooting range? You know, who wants to go set fire to some abandoned buildings? Although those are great adventures. It's the, hey, I'm meeting somebody down at Starbucks to talk about some stuff. Do you want to come with and grab a coffee? It's the little things like that that I found myself. It's the monthly board game night that I got a job through just because it was Saturday night and I had nothing going on. I'm going to play some board games. It's like 8 o'clock and I really just felt like staying home. But I said yes. And I went down there and got a job out of it. And I met some really cool other people down there. Several others which have told me, hey, we're hiring if you're looking to move over. And it's just board games. Just stop saying no, start saying yes. That is the best information that I can give you from all of this. So just do it. Just say yes, and then go. You have to make sure you go, seriously. Just say yes, put it in your calendar. We all carry a calendar around with us. It's in our phones. Put it in there. As I see a lot of people who say yes to stuff and then forget because they didn't write it down. They didn't put it in the calendar. Like, oh yeah, next Tuesday, cool. And then they go, oh, I totally forgot it was today. Keep a calendar. We're grown-ups. We have a lot of stuff going on. And don't feel weird about putting, you know, going to the movies in your calendar. Once you start saying yes to everything, that calendar is going to fill up really quick. And you need to block off stuff like that. Like I said yes to go to the movies with Frank. Get it in there. Otherwise, you're going to be so overwhelmed just having to constantly remember things that you're doing for the next week that you're going to lose all motivation and stop doing it entirely. Yeah, I brought this up again because remember, I just from showing up, got the job I have now, got the job I had before that, broke my pointer. Yeah, I mean, remember this? That was just from showing up to places. That was from going to huge parties in Kyle's backyard. Now I get to work with him. Yeah, so once you're showing up, once you're like, okay, fine, I said I would go. I'm going to go. That's good. I'm here. Great. Now what do I do? While just showing up and sitting there, let's make this context an InfoSec meetup. It's in a bar or a cafe somewhere. Once you show up, yeah, you can just sit there. You can grab a stool, sit in the corner, play on your phone. And yeah, that is better than not going at all. It's the absolute least you can possibly do. And yeah, you might get, a more extroverted guy who's going to come sit next to you and go, hey, I'm Pete. What are you doing? What's going on? But sometimes you won't. A lot of people don't like talking to the quiet kids because they're creepy, because it's always the quiet ones. So you got to work the room. And you're not going to, especially if you're an introvert who doesn't do this sort of thing at all, I understand it. You're not going to be able to just show up and go, okay, I'm not an introvert anymore. Now we're going to work this room. I know it's not how it works. You're going to have to practice. And just like anything else, it's a skill that you have to practice. And it's not going to work out for you every time. But depending on the size of the meetup and how long it is, you're going to come away with probably at least meeting one acquaintance, one person you kind of clicked with, or you go, yeah, he was kind of cool. And you swap business cards with or whatever. Here's the basics on how to work a room. Put your stuff away that's not human. Put your phone away, your laptop. And I see all this all the time. Remember, this is all things I've seen people do constantly. It seems like common sense. Oh yeah, well don't sit on your phone or don't sit on your laptop in the middle of a meetup. I've never gone to a meetup where there wasn't at least one laptop open somewhere. People, us, we bring our laptops places. Especially those of us who are on call, we have to. And I understand if you're on call and you got to open up your laptop, but maybe you should walk away from the group and take care of that and come back. Google Glass is a heavy no. We, as people who are overly concerned with privacy, don't like Google Glasses being pointed at us. You have to get up. You got to walk around. You can't just be sitting in that stool with your stuff away going, being this kid. Because you get about 30 seconds of that. Half of you are doing it right now. Like, man, that's creepy. Would you go talk to me? I wouldn't. It's weird as hell. So you got to get up. When I go to meetups, I generally don't sit at all. I'm usually standing and walking around, unless maybe I'm eating or something. But I'm usually walking around. Open your eyes means literally, like here's my default stance today, because I'm very tired. This is me. It's not very approachable. It doesn't look weird. It's just not opening. If you open your eyes just a little bit, just pretend you're awake. Not this. Because someone's going to try to buy cocaine off you. And a lot of this takes practice, and eventually it'll become second nature, and you'll walk into a group of people and your eyes will instantly open. But at first, you're going to have to mentally remember. And if you want to make yourself a little checklist to keep in your pocket with stuff like this, so when you're going somewhere, you just pull it out and, oh, yeah, I'll open my eyes. Do that. Don't be embarrassed by that. Have a positive demeanor. So many people are, especially if you go to like after work meetups, like 6 o'clock at night during the week, so many people are just beat to heck from the day at work, or they had a terrible day at work, or they fought with their spouse at home before coming out and they're just in a bad mood. You got to drop it. Nobody wants to talk to you when you're in a bad mood. Nobody wants to talk to you when you're constantly being negative about things too. You gotta put on that mask for a bit. Remember, this is a game, and we're playing a game, and you just have to be generally positive. You don't have to be over the top crazy joyful, because that's creepy too. Balance it all out. Just watch yourself and make sure you're not constantly just saying negative things all the time. I had a big problem with that for a long time, and I got to be known as the guy who's just the naysayer, finds the problems in everything. And nobody wants to work with a naysayer. And so, while they liked me as a friend and they didn't mind having me around, they wouldn't want to involve me in anything where my opinion would get tapped. Because I would be like, well, that's dumb because this and this, and you didn't think about that, so I don't like it. Just stop it. You got to have that positive demeanor. And if you don't like what they're talking about and you don't agree with it, you can bring that up in a respectful way, and don't beat on it too much, because then you're just starting arguments. A lot of how to deal with that is in that how to win friends and influence people. There's a lot of stuff on correcting people and having arguments. But I'm telling you, it's this easy as far as making people like you. Just open your eyes and smile a little bit. Just a little bit, not a ton. You don't want to walk around the room like this. But just little, instead of, I'll give you the default face again, to this. Just a little, just not frowning. And because this is your default state, you don't know you're doing it. You don't feel yourself looking like this. But you'll feel yourself looking like this, and you know you changed something. You know that you weren't doing this before, and so you know you fixed something, and you go, oh man, okay. And then, you can give a bigger smile when you go up to meet someone, like, hey, I'm Johnny. Zach, nice to meet you. Zach's got it too. He's got a nice smile. Not a crazy psychotic smile. Just a, hey, it's honestly nice to meet you, because you haven't done anything bad to me yet, so. This is going well so far, man. Me and Zach, we're clicking, just right like that. If you're talking to people, match their energy. You can't come into a couple of people or a person who's just kind of talking all slow and going like this. You can't come in and be like, hey man, what's going on? Like you got to meet them somewhere in the middle at least. You can't throw high energy at low energy, and you can't throw low energy at high energy. The low energy is not going to irritate the high energy people that much, but it's more going to think like, this guy's a pud. I don't know what his deal is. He's got some problems. I don't want to talk to him. So just make sure your energy is kind of within 30% either way of what you're getting into. And sometimes you don't know what you're getting into until the conversation gets rolling, but keep an eye on that. Sometimes you're going to have to be the one to initiate conversations. Just walking around with a smile going like this. Naturally, we don't approach people too much as people. Like going up to strangers is, for probably all of us, we were taught not to do that since we were little kids. Like, no, don't talk to strangers. Don't go up to people you don't know and just start talking to them. It's weird. But that's the whole concept of what we're doing here, is meeting strangers, making acquaintances out of people we didn't know. So you're going to have to go up to them and start a conversation. And it's just like that. If you have a context like an information security meetup or a conference, go, hey, I'm Johnny. Oh, cool. I'm Zach. Cool. What brings you here? Start asking basic questions. Oh, yeah. What do you do for work? And just get a rapport going, and then you can match their energy, and you can try to click with them a little bit. You're not going to click with everybody. So don't get disappointed because the first people you talk to weren't really interested in talking to you. Great people to try to initiate conversations with are the wallflowers. Ooh, there's stairs over here in case anybody wants to come up. And this chair's falling apart. That guy who's sitting there, maybe on his phone, just drinking his beer and just kind of looking around because no one's talking to him. And this is, he's at least just showing up. Help them out. Go over and talk to them. I've met a lot of cool wallflowers. They're just not good at initiating conversations. They don't have that kind of personality. And you can go and talk to them and try and get them up and out. And now you're helping someone else too. A lot of you probably have this problem because I see it constantly. And those are the ones I always go for first, is the wallflowers, to grab them. Hey, man, what are you doing here? Oh, that's really cool. And, try and be positive with them. So that's cool that you showed up. Reinforce the fact that what they're doing is good to begin with so that they can, maybe feel more comfortable with everybody. And then maybe even, hey, come on over here. Let me introduce you to this guy. He does what you do. You two would probably, be a matchmaker. I find that works really well. Don't be creepy when getting involved in conversations. Can I get 2 volunteers that I can creep on? Zach, yeah, come on up. Here, just gonna stand over here. Just like, you guys ever do improv before? Because this is kind of an improv thing. What's your name? Eric. Eric, nice to meet you. All right, Zach. Now, Eric, you are an Austrian nobleman, and you're commissioning a symphony in C that you're going to give to your nephew as a birthday present. Zach's the composer. He's broke. He's poor because he's a composer in a time when composers were looked down upon. And you're trying to milk him for the most money, and you're trying to make sure that he's putting out some good product here. And don't worry about what you're saying, because it's not at all important to him. Yeah, in fact, Zach, stand like right here. Yeah. All right. And kind of even more like this. Not closer. Just turn this way.
In the circle?
This went way better in my slides. Yeah. So it's...
How's it going? It's going good. I'm Zach. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you.
Look, they like each other already and smiling. It's working out.
So I've been working on this new music. I was wondering if you might be interested.
Oh, tell me more.
Well...
What kind of music?
Well, I haven't really figured that out.
Really?
Well, I've had some ideas.
Is it a symphony?
Symphony.
Writing a symphony?
A symphony, yes.
That's cool.
I deal with those.
Well, would you like to see some music notes?
My uncle wrote a symphony. You might have heard of him, yeah. But he's dead now. But yeah, he's writing symphonies.
That's terrible.
Yeah, it's okay. But
That's okay.
so what do you do?
I'm a nobleman.
You're a nobleman.
Yes, a nobleman.
Nice to meet you, man.
Yeah.
So you write symphonies?
No, I just met this guy,
Oh,
Zach,
okay.
and he writes symphonies.
All right. So that's enough of that. So what did I do wrong there? What was I doing creepy? That was creepy. Everything, right? Every single thing I did was creepy. I see that so often. The come up and creeping behind 2 people who are engaged in a conversation and just standing there, and then making like monosyllabic remarks like, oh yeah, oh I like symphonies. Like to people who don't even know you. And I get it, you're trying to be social, but that's creepy. And then also stealing the conversation. Like these 2 are in the middle of a conversation. I came in and I just totally changed the subject more or less and started talking to him. And Zach's over here like, I'm trying to get some money here. Yeah, oh, you guys could sit down. And that's the big problem I see with people who aren't great at being social but are trying to be, is they'll do that and they'll just go through this physical list and be like, all right, I need to get involved with what's going on here, so I'm going to go, I'll get involved and then walk over and just kind of crowbar themselves in. So make sure you're not doing that. Look for a lull in the conversation. I mean, it is cool if you're into what they're talking about. Follow the conversation and make sure there's a point where you can jump in. And you could say, oh, hey, I'm Johnny. You guys talking about symphonies? And they might go, yeah. And you go, oh, that's cool. I write symphonies too. And then just sit back, let them talk, see if they engage you. If they're not, you can go somewhere else. I'm very thirsty. How creepy you are is dependent on a few factors, and how creepy you are perceived as being is dependent on a few factors. Some of you, who knows my unified creepiness theory? Has anyone seen that around? This is another inconvenient truth, because it deals with, I don't want to get in the way, I'm sorry. Feel free to take pictures, tag me. It's an inconvenient truth because it deals with attractiveness, which is something a lot of people struggle with. And I don't mean a lot of people are ugly. I mean a lot of people struggle with knowing how attractive they are. We're always hard on ourselves. And also, more attractive people get their way more often. That's absolutely how it is. We as human beings treat more attractive people. The more attractive you are, the better we'll treat you. In general, on average, it's terrible. It's an awful thing to say in 2015, but it's absolutely true, and it's part of the game, and you need to be aware of that. And so, basically what this says is the more attractive you are, the more awkward and forward you can be without people getting totally creeped out by you. But persistence will always mess that up. The more you persist, the more you push a subject that's just not clicking with who you're creeping on, the more creepy you're going to become. So you could be the hottest guy on earth. You could be a 10 with a 1 and a 1 of awkwardness and forwardness. But if you just keep pushing a subject, you're going to creep somebody out. It's going to take you a long time. But if somebody just keeps saying the same thing to you over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, you start to get this weird mental vibe from them, and that's creepiness. It's being creeped on, it's being creeped out. A lot of people argue with me on this, and nobody's been able to prove otherwise. I'm positive that's how it works. I did have to add the using a 1 to 10 scale for all values, because somebody was trying to say, well, if your attractiveness is 0, and I'm like, what is 0? Like a fire victim who has no limbs anymore? Like, let's just assume that 1 is the lowest. And so, there you go. I hope you guys learned something from that. So, talking more about what you're doing wrong, the wallflowering we got on, creeping on people. Another thing I see you guys do wrong a lot is talking shop. I understand that you're excited about what you do and the fact that I do what you do, and not a lot of other people do what you do, so you got someone to talk to. Oh my God, this guy understands me. But he knows about this, and here's all these things that I'm generally excited about in my head to begin with. Here's somebody who's going to know all the words I'm using. Let me tell him about all these things, and he'll get excited too. Look out for that. If he doesn't get excited pretty soon into the conversation, it's not your guy. If somebody else starts doing it to you and you're into it, you're like, oh yeah, I do that too. Hey, let's talk about this. I work with that appliance, or I have this problem with Security Onion, whatever. Go for it. As long as everyone involved in the conversation is up for it, do it. But generally, I recommend against opening with talking shop or bringing up shop in general. I let somebody else do that. Because me personally, I don't like people talking shop to me. I do that at work all day, long days. I don't want to come home. I don't want to go out and have people talking shop to me. That's not the same as talking about work and complaining about what you did at work today. That's normal conversation, and it's nice to have someone to talk to about how bad your day was and have them really understand. When you go, oh man, I've been dealing with this McAfee email gateway. They just put out patch 4 and it's the big pain in the ass to install. And the other guys, oh yeah, we use the email gateways too. It's terrible. Here's what we did. Like, all right, that's fine. But just general talking shop, like, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? Here's this new IDS I'm trying to program. Generally, especially us who work in the industry, we don't want to hear about it. We read about it on blogs all day. We're doing it at work. Keep it to a minimum. It's a real good way to make someone not want to talk to you just because you're more of that work stress that they're here trying to get away from. And while you two may normally click, if you're just laying shop into them, they're gonna have to use the bathroom really quick and then leave. That's also a really good out. If you're on the receiving end of this, there's a small handful of guarantees where you can leave the conversation and not offend anyone. One of them is, hey, I'm sorry, I got to use the restroom really quick. I'll be right back. No one's going to be like, oh, it's 2 more minutes. You would never do that to anyone. And don't do that to anyone. If you would have said that, write that down. Let people pee. I should have made a slide. Sorry, just. Don't follow them into the bathroom. That is an excellent point. I haven't seen it happen. I know it can happen, and I'm sure, especially with. Here's a sexist truth, especially with the ladies who are much more open in general to going to the bathroom in groups or pairs. It's way more likely for a woman to say, I'm going to use the restroom really quick, although socially women also don't talk about that. They don't go, I have to use the restroom. They're just, we'll be back. But they'll say, I'm going to use the restroom real quick, and if you're also talking with another woman, she may go, oh yeah, me too, let's go. And then you have to go, oh yeah, let's go. And then you have to listen to this girl talking shop to you while you're trying to go to the bathroom. And I can't imagine, it's never happened to me. It sounds horrible. It's like, this requires all of my concentration right now. Oh yeah, they'll stand outside the stall and just talk at the door. I've seen that. I've seen that happen in the restrooms. Well, if everybody was already in there, I've seen a guy go up to a door and just start talking. And they knew each other. He's like, yeah, so I'm going to call Frank around 3. Do you want me to put that on that call? And you just see these shoes and pants under the... And he's just like, yeah, put me one on the call, yeah. So another slide I missed. Don't follow people in the bathroom. And then generally the talking too much in general, not just talking shop, but just in general. Nobody wants to listen to you. And this sounds like a negative thing, but what it is it's a problem with us. We have ADD and we're incredibly selfish. It's hard for us to really get interested in what somebody else is saying unless it directly applies to us and directly affects us. And that's what's going on. If that's what's going on, you want to get out. You don't want somebody talking to you that much. So keep an eye on yourself. The inverse, I guess, to that is the more you let someone talk to you, the more they're going to like you. And this is a crazy thing. They bond with you by just talking to you and complaining to you. And as long as they perceive that you're listening to them, you could have said 10 words, and they'll come out of there going, yeah, Zach was pretty cool. I was just talking to him. Even though Zach didn't say much. And what you can do is poke at them to keep that conversation going if you want. If you perceive like this person is liking this and you don't mind the conversation, make sure you're asking questions about what they're talking about. Provide empty feedback. They're like, oh yeah? Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I heard about that. Don't do the don't do that. Another thing, if they're complaining about stuff, and this is a weird people thing again, don't offer unsolicited advice. Don't help them fix their problem. Generally, they don't want that. They just want to complain. And if you let them complain to you, they're going to like you.
One thing I learned from working with retail is never ask closed-ended questions. For example, if the answer is yes or no, don't ask tough questions like, can I help you today? They'll say, yes, they
Oh, sure.
So what can help you with?
Right, and make them give you a full sentence in response. Yeah, yeah, that's a good point, and it would work here, just so long as you're making that conversation keep going. Here's how to tell if you're talking too much. Look for their eye contact. If they're barely ever making eye contact with you, and they used to be when that conversation started, they've already faded you out. You're gone. You're wasting everyone's time here, and all they're thinking is, God, this guy doesn't shut up. Now it's quick. Chicken heading. Look for them. Just things distract you, doing the squirrel while you're talking to them. They'll come back to you and go, and then they'll come back to you, and then look over here. I see that a lot. Checking their phone, obviously. Don't talk to the same person in a big setting like this for more than 15 minutes. Just don't. You can talk to them for 15 minutes, leave, find them again later, and start up a new conversation if you want. That's called time distortion. It makes them think that they haven't seen you in a while. That's how the brain perceives it. And so they're kind of happy to see a familiar face come back. And you could start talking again and see what happens. But leave them alone for 50 minutes. And the big one a lot of people told me about was, you're drunk. Stop getting drunk. Like you're at an InfoSec meetup, like in the middle of it's like 3 p.m. and you're drunk. You're at a conference and just, no, this isn't 2 a.m. on Friday. And also, if you're the only drunk one, that's serious. You screwed this up. Pretty much out of time, so I think I'm going to end at the end of this section. It's a skill, and you have to practice it in order to master it. You're not going to click with everyone. The master pickup artists, the master socializers, they all say about 20% success rate is excellent. You are great at this. That's only 1 in 5 people, making an acquaintance to the point where you have regular contact with them and, could get in touch with them where they would know who you are if a job opened up. 1 in 5. So like that means most of the time, it's not going to click. It's not going to work. And it's fine. Don't let yourself get demotivated because you're just not clicking with people. Because every now and then you're going to come across that one, and it's going to work. Totally normal. Just know that it's happening. And with the people you don't click with, don't burn your bridges. Don't. No matter if they don't even work in your field, don't and you don't like their personality, don't talk smack about them. Don't say mean things behind their back. Just if other people are talking bad about them, don't contribute, because you never know when that person's going to be able to help you. Like board game night guy, he was a weirdo. He would wear this goofy hat, and I mean like Disney character goofy hat with these ears that would dangle down, and he was all covered in weird hippie tattoos, and he was just this hippie guy. Hey, man. And he was the lead information security engineer for a Global 1000 company who needed more people under him. And you know what? He was an awesome lead to work under. Knew his stuff. But if I was just like, man, that kid's weird, I'm not going to hang out with that guy, that, I wouldn't have gotten anywhere. Probably wouldn't be here. So I'm out of time. That's where I got to leave it. I hope you guys kind of got something from this. So what'd you think? All right.